Welcome to the video. My name is Sho, and in this video I'm going to talk about why you need to, or you have to, travel. Because there are so many things that I've learned from traveling around the world. And especially this year, I've traveled in 6 months. I went to Costa Rica in the last December, which is exactly a year ago. I landed in Costa Rica for the first time a year ago. Somewhere like 12th December, 13th December. So it's pretty much exactly the same date. And so I stayed in Costa Rica for a month, and then I went to Miami afterwards, and I stayed for a week. And then I went to New York and stayed there for a month. And then I went to Mexico City and I stayed there for a month. And then I went back to Miami and then I stayed there for a couple of days. And I went back to New York for a 1 day, and I came back to Miami, and then I went back to Costa Rica. It was exactly like that. And then I stayed for a month in Costa Rica and then came back with a friend of mine. And that 6 months taught me so much. You know, since I took plant medicine in Costa Rica and had all the spiritual journey, the integration was so long. I had to deal with a lot of injury, bleeding, and some sicknesses. It was crazy. Like, I had to go to the hospital for so many times. I don't go to the hospitals. Like, I never really are in hospitals, but I had to go to the hospital in Mexico City twice. But I started traveling when I was 19 or 20. I remember that I was working for like $7 per hour, like $8 per hour. And it was so cheap. And I was working 6 days a week, or perhaps sometimes 6 days, 7 days a week sometimes. Like, basically default is like 5 to 7 days a week. I was just working so hard because I needed to save some money because I was a student. And then even though I was working like a maniac, all I got was like $1,000. And I was like, wow. But it was such a huge money for me because I've never earned that much money. You know, when I was a student, I started working, but all I was getting was like $800 or $700. And then when I got the $1,000, I was like, wow, I can buy a flight ticket. And then the next month I can book a hostel. Then I started traveling around, and I went to London, and I went to New York, and I went to LA. And that was really the introduction to the world and to the other people and to the culture. Then I just kept going abroad to get to know the places, to get exposed, to make friends, and etc. And there's a few things that I've learned through traveling around the world by myself. One is everything is temporary. You know, when you actually are a traveler, then you will encounter a lot of hello and goodbyes. And perhaps much more than you living in a one spot. If you're traveling around the world constantly, then you meet people and then you have to face the farewell. And obviously that's not the end of the world. That's not the end of the story. You might be able to get to see him or see her someday if the connection is legit. So I've learned to adapt to that lifestyle of like hello and goodbye. And everything is temporary, and it's just the one inevitable rule in this world that something happens, something starts, something ends. And I've met thousands of people through the last decade of my traveling and staying in Japan as well, but I love meeting people. And yeah, there was a lot of goodbye as well, but it made me stronger, and it made me more or less attached to each person because I've learned to love somebody. I've learned to think and wishing them success and happiness without being attached to that person. Because I know deeply everything is temporary, maybe I even sometimes feel like I'm a very cold person sometimes. But it's actually not really me being cold-hearted, even though I thought about this sometime before. But it's me just understanding that everything is temporary. So again, I can still wish them success and I can still wish them happiness, and sometimes I can think of them and like sending good energy and sending love, but I don't have to be attached to the people. However, if you live in a one spot and are not traveling around and not understanding or experiencing this hello and goodbye enough times, you are so attached to the place and You're so attached to the people. And this is something that you have to understand, that you have to leave home at some point, because you cannot call it home if you don't leave the place. You cannot call it home if you don't leave the house. Because in order for you to understand and appreciate in the deepest level, you have to leave it. You have to live without it for a certain period of time. And I believe that I had a privilege. And I believe that, I'm glad that I chose that way rather than just like going to the college and just like get a job right after. But I choose to not to do that. And I chose that experience because I believed that will make me grow. And then it did. Because if you have more knowledge and an experience, that creates depth in human being, and that creates depth in individual. However, you cannot have so much knowledge and then little experience. That's merely a philosophy. However, if you have so much experience but just dumb as fuck, and then you don't have any knowledge, that you don't understand, or whatever the experience you had, that's just ignorance. So we all have to immerse ourselves to just learn it, because we came here to learn, we came here to heal, but at the same time we get to enjoy what is in front of us. We get to enjoy this whole experience, these beautiful experiences. And another thing that I really, really appreciate, what I've learned through traveling around the world, is I've learned to adapt. Well, back in the days when I was a kid, I was just surfing, and my dad taught me, just go out there, get a shell, and then burn it, and then we're going to eat it. So I've learned this like a bit of like survival tips and survival way. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun rather than just like, playing video games. And I was much more nature person since I was very young. And then I think it's definitely coming from my dad. And I really appreciate the fact that he raised me that way. But at the same time, I'm a very city person. I like city life as well. I like fashion and etc. I like dressing up and enjoying this like bit luxury and like whatever. But to be honest, now I'm 30 years old and I did all the city life and the fashion, and I really feel like that wasn't everything that I wanted. But I'd rather stay connected with the nature. So that's why I'm not living in the city at the moment. I'm living in very close to the beach. I'm surrounded by mountains, and it's very chill, and I feel a bit isolated, but that's completely okay, because if you're completely connected within yourself, then that means that you can bear the loneliness, you can bear this like feeling of alone and loneliness, because you're fully connected within yourself, and you understand that there are people connected beyond time and space. So of course people sometimes feel lonely and stuff like that, but if you have this strong connection within yourself, you'll never be separated from the world. The reason why it's so important to learn to adapt is because adaptability is it's basically the superpower of human being. Sure, this is a superpower as well, but adaptability allows you to live anywhere happily. If you think about it, if you can adapt to any situation, any condition, and any location, then you can be happy anywhere you go. You can adapt to any locations, and then find fulfillment, and find that happiness, and find that routine, and then your mind and your body, and then each cell of your body adapts to that level of like cultural aspect and an energy in geolocation. Throughout this decades of traveling around the world and getting to know the different culture and different people, it doesn't really bother me at all. Like, okay, cool, culture is different. It's cool, okay, people are different. And obviously there will be some moment that you need to reflect, and sometimes it's okay to feel sadness, it's okay to feel loneliness. And then I remember that I was called to go to Mexico City, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll go. And I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone. I just went there to Mexico City, and then just like talking to so many people, like hi on the street. It's like, hey, what's up? Like, I like your glasses. I like your jacket. And I made some friends. And I made good connections sometimes. So I never really felt alone. And I was busy as well, working for a project and then launching a workshop and etc. So it was busy, but I was hitting the gym every day. And I was really blessed by the people. I had really good friends and really good people around me in Mexico City. Even though I didn't quite understand why I went to Mexico City, because I was too busy to explore. I was a little bit too busy I wanted to go this place, that place. But yeah, I couldn't really. But well, at the end of the journey, I found out why I was there. But for example, like food was a little bit different. And I didn't enjoy myself eating food there, even though a lot of American people said the food is good. I did find a lot of delicious places, but I also found a lot of shitty places. And I had to go to the hospital twice, and it was not that pleasant. The air pollution was really bad in Mexico City. But again, it doesn't really bother me. But your body can adapt to that, and your mind can adapt to it. And I was running to the gym every day to the Airbnb that I was staying, and it was about like 10-15 minutes running. And perhaps that was the reason why I got sick heavily on my throat, because I was running and then the pollution was bad, and that was actually, I had to cross over the highway. So I believe that was one of the reasons. And then you cannot complain that in life, people expect Mexico City or like wherever to go, whatever the experience is, to be, amazing, because the people have expectation. But then if something or some experience or some location doesn't match with their expectation, they feel like disappointed. But it's so funny because that expectation was created by the media, the expectation was created by the information and whatever you felt within. And then just because the location doesn't fit your needs, people are disappointed. But once you learn how to adapt, everything is just so amazing. Everything is just so interesting. And then you can still have feedback. Okay, well, Mexico City, the food wasn't that good. But that doesn't mean that it's a disappointment. I don't get disappointed by the food was bad in that city or like that places. It was just feedback, and then I still appreciate the food and I still eat the food, or I can cook myself. So what happens when you learn to adapt and then you become so adaptable to every condition and every situation in life? What happens is you're just solution oriented. You can always find a solution rather than complaining and stuck in the same situation. And when you become so solution oriented, and then when you become so aware of this, what can I do to just fix it? What can I do to make myself a little bit feel better? Then you find things that are more exciting rather than just like complaining and bitching about like, oh, this sucks and Mexico sucks and blah, blah, blah. Well, Mexico didn't suck. I loved it. Mexico, the people in there was amazing. I loved every encounter, and it was beautiful. It was just, every location has a pros and cons, and Japan has a pros and cons, and every cultural aspect have a pros and cons. Everything comes with the yin and yang. But if you cannot adapt, even though you can, technically, every human being has this superpower, adaptability. But if you don't allow yourself to adapt, and you just allow yourself to keep bitching about life, then what happens is you stay miserable, and you stay just feeling like shit, rather than finding some ordinary moment to find joy, or to find something that's just beautiful. Wow, the food sucks, doesn't change anything. Temperature cold doesn't change anything about it. But still, life can be beautiful under the cold. Life can be beautiful under the hot. And funny enough, when you're actually forced to adapt, you become so good at adapting. So in life, we have to at least force ourselves sometime and challenge ourselves in some degree, so that we can actually learn to adapt, to learn to find a solution, learn to be happy, learn to find a joy in each situation. And the best part is you have so many stories to tell. You have so many stories that you can talk about and then tell others, and then tell how amazing your story is and how amazing your experience is, and then take them to the journey of this great story that you experienced. And I can guarantee, if you always choose to not to adapt, your story sucks, because, oh yeah, that was fucked up, that was bad, food was bad, and this was bad. But if you learn to adapt, you always find something that go beyond of the discomfort, that go beyond of something unpleasant, and then you find like, wow, this shit is awesome. And then you get to talk about it. So with that said, if you find yourself wanting to go in trouble, you know what? Just fuck all that shit. Just go. Just go. You can always come back in and get a job and make money. But the experience, this exploring life, get to know people and learning so much other things in other cultures, it's priceless. You cannot buy it. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope this video encouraged you to plan a trip. And it doesn't have to be outside of your country. Perhaps you want to start from within the country, and that's completely fine. Some countries are huge. Some countries are small. But don't choose to stay in the exact same spot over and over and over. Learn to get out. And so you appreciate the home too. Alright, with this said, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace. Live your life like a movie.